We're going to try my internet. Damn. Can you hear me all right, Damien?
More or less. Keep trying. We'll see. Oh, actually, I guess we're not going to keep trying. Anyway, we haven't really figured out who should do the introduction. I guess I will. Of course, in about 8.5 hours, at least that's the not before time, there's going to be the Rafael Nadal Dominic Thiem first round match in Brisbane, which is actually quite quite a big story. Of course, they haven't played in a long time, and also, of course, with Rafa, this being his first match since almost a year. And that's what we're going to talk about here today.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a big story when team was already playing the qualies, right? Because
Yeah.
once he qualified, there was basically like a 1/6 chance that he was going to draw Rafa. And obviously, his qualifying was a big story in and of itself because he was down 2-6, 3-5, left 40 in his first match, right? So when he comes back from that and then
On return
he's
as
like,
well.
well, on the return, yeah. So that was big, and then he was down a set in his next qualifying match as well. So to come through those two, and then to play Rafa is like just yeah, like already a miraculous start to the season, for team. So many things happening at once, but like I wonder if this will just make him play a little bit freer, play with some more house money if you like, maybe. But there's just so many unknowns about this matchup. Like how does Nadal look? For the first time in over a year. And like how is his movement? How is his serve? Like those are all things we'll be looking for.
Quick question, by the way, to you both. Was the draw rigged? Do you actually believe that Dominic Thiem and Rafael Nadal were, put in by someone into the draw in order for them to face each other? I know it's a 1 in 6 chance. It's like 16.6. But still, like when I see something like this, I'm generally not one of these people who go out, screaming that draws are definitely manufactured and like every single thing is just planned by the WTA or the ATP or whoever. But when I see something like this, I mean, honestly, it never really felt in doubt that there's gonna be Team Nadal. When you saw that Dominic Team has qualified, I mean, it just seemed like the most likely option. And of course, yeah, it's just a 1 in 6 chance. But this is the sort of case that actually gets to me, like where I think that, oh, okay, this is very possibly a thing.
I'll actually disagree with you. I think the best tweet I saw on this was from Courtney Wynn, who said tournaments don't want their superstars to play in the first round. They want them to last as long as possible.
But these superstars are like very fragile right now.
Yeah,
you have no guarantee that they're gonna go any deep.
That's a good point. But I also think that in general, like this discussion only happens when we get a big match in the first round, and the rest of the time, which is most of the time, really, we never really say like, "Oh, that draw wasn't rigged." It's only when we get a clash of the titans like this where we think something could have happened. I don't know. I guess like since I can't find evidence for it, I guess I'll say that it was normal. But what do you think, Bunch?
Uh, I don't know. Like I usually have a tough time thinking like it was rigged or manufactured like behind closed doors and stuff. Like I mean, like these draw ceremonies. I wish like they did it live and it was like a whole show that like fans can just tune in for and it's like available to watch and stuff. I mean, then we just know we just have complete closure, like it's not rigged at all. Because then it's like, I mean, the whole world is like seeing it. So I I don't really know. I don't really have a clear opinion.
I'm totally in the team of conspiracy theories here. I will put on my teen hat on and tinfoil hat on and just keep saying that this was rigged. But still, I'm quite excited for it. They haven't played in a while. Certainly, it's a matchup that on hard courts I feel like we haven't really had all that much, even though the recent years have helped with that. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty huge for sure.
Yeah, one other thing that just occurred to me on this though is like no matter who Nadal played, everyone was going to tune in though, right? Like did they really need team for additional
No.
drawing power?
No.
Not really.
But But yeah, well, like you, Damien, I'm super excited for this. I think in 2020, like it was amazing their matches, even though there were only 2 of them. They played 6 sets, and I think 5 of them went to tie breaks. So that
All
tells
won
you,
by team, right?
yeah,
All tiebreaks are won by team, which is a bit
yeah,
of a quirk. I was reading through the head-to-head today, and I just wow, okay.
yeah. So I think that tells you on what kind of even terms they were on in 2020. But what do you guys think is going to be the case now?
Yeah, it's a tough question because I mean I think the odds have Nadal as a slight favorite. I would probably agree with that. Like I mean it's like Thiem is just like he was 1 point away from losing in the first round, and in general I just haven't been very high on him for like over a year now. Like just haven't seen the best version. But I almost think he needed to play one of Nadal or Djokovic to like kind of work his way back into the team that we know, like closer to that version of team, and he might just start like hitting his forehand a lot bigger again because he kind of has to. And I kind of wonder how like Nadal will sort of react and use his own forehand as a weapon, because like for a while between like 2019 and 2021, like Thiem was really taking it to these guys, um, like with his backhand in particular, but his forehand was such a massive weapon as well, and he was just like teeing off on every single ground stroke and just like had so much confidence going for him. And I just wonder, like, I don't know, since that wrist injury, I mean, it's just like he just hasn't really been even close to that version that we've seen. So I just wonder like how will the forehand hold up, and like if playing Rafa is just going to make him be a lot more proactive and aggressive in general off that wing.
Yeah, maybe it's wrong, but I'm not really looking at it in terms of like Dominic Thiem. I'm just looking at it in like, do I want to take Rafa against average 100-ish ranked player at the moment? Because that's kind of what Thiem has been since he returned from that injury. Is there really a way forward for him? We'll see. I mean, the forehand definitely lost a lot of its shape, quality, the combination of pace and spin. But yeah, I'm also looking at like the match rhythm that Thiem has and comparing that, of course, to Rafa, who hasn't played in ages, who had surgery in June and then had a long period of recovery. So he hasn't actually even practiced like all that much. Of course, he's had a pretty good swing, but he's also 37 now. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's probably a little closer than the odds have it, just because, yeah, I'm just looking at Thiem. I know he's nothing special right now. I know he struggled in the qualifying, but just in terms of the match rhythm, the sort of, yeah, I mean, the amount of tennis that they've had in recent times, and also the health, which, of course, for Thiem, we might still argue that the forehand being worse now is still the left over from that wrist injury, but still he's been relatively healthy otherwise recently. And yeah, I mean, it's a match where we basically cannot say anything, right? There was even that doubles, of course, performance of Rafa, with Mark Lopez against Purcell and Thompson. I feel like Rafa didn't really do much in that at all. Like, Mark Lopez was praised a lot for the volleying. Of course, Mark Lopez also coming back after a while. He retired in Madrid, partnering Alcaraz. He's back. He gets all the praise. Rafa hits like one good backhand, which gets posted on Tennis TV. And, it's a fine shot, but I feel like it was mostly, sort of this ubiquitous on tennis Twitter and the likes, mostly because it was the best shot that Rafa hit in the entire match. I'm not saying this really bodes, well or not actually well for his comeback. I have no clue, because I just feel like the doubles game is so different, and even the range of movement that he had to show, and obviously the patterns of play. I basically try to take like nothing from that doubles match, but it's good for him that he had it. At least 1 hour on the court, just shake off some of the rust. But yeah, it's a wild match to predict for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree slightly with the odds and say that I slightly favor Thiem here. And going off what Vanch said with the forehand, that has been the thing that is missing. Like Thiem still hits backhands down the line winners, but like you said, Damien, he is basically just a fringe top 100 level player now. And I think the biggest reason is when he was on top, that forehand was up there with the best in the world. And have you seen the show Modern Family?
I know what it is. I haven't watched it actually, but
so there's a scene where a character is trying to walk across a tightrope in his yard, and he puts it like 2 inches off the ground so that when he falls, he's going to be fine. And then someone says to him, and then he keeps falling. And then someone says to him, maybe the reason you keep falling is that you know you can. And then he moves the tightrope way up and he walks across it. And I think a similar thing is kind of going on with Thiem in the sense that he doesn't want to hurt his wrist again. And so he takes pace off the ball, and his forehand has suffered as a result. And I agree with Vanch's point that if he plays a Nadal or a Djokovic, maybe he knows he can't get away with that. And yeah, that's exactly the photo. Maybe he knows that he can't get away with it, and so it'll sort of return to the forehand of old. And I think if that is going to happen against anyone, it would be against a Djokovic or a Nadal, because when they played back in 2020, Thiem really, really got up for those matches. He was hitting sledgehammer forehands the entire time. Maybe that forehand is gone completely, and if it is, then it's obviously going to be a tougher match for him. But if it isn't, like if there is still a trace of it there, maybe it comes back against Rafa. Is there anything to that, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely expect Thiem to have a lot of intensity. This has been maybe missing at some points as well. Of course, he's had some very good performances like the Kitzbühel final, but the consistency in 2023 wasn't really there. Like some sets that season I can remember were like probably some of the worst that I've seen Thiem play. And it wasn't about the forehand quality. It was, literally him dumping everything in the net. I don't think that's going to happen in this much. Like he, at least, in theory, he should come out really hungry and just, try to do whatever he can, whatever that his best will be. I do think that he is going to show it. I have no clue what that is at the moment, obviously. And then as we've been saying, in the qualifying, he didn't look that great. But I guess in the history of their matchup, the 15 matches that they've played, there weren't really any major duds, right? Like, I'm not talking about the first match that they played because it was like so long ago. And obviously Nadal was a massive favorite. There was one Roland Garros final, which was very easy, but that's like, Rafa was too good. That wasn't really a team problem, I don't think. Yeah, ATP Finals 2020, the round robin match, which Thiem won into tie breaks, Jane, is the last time that they played. So, I think anytime they really faced each other, they were actually like, at each other's throats, and it was always a very intense duel. I think that should still apply. Like, even if you get these guys playing in 10 years, of course, you're not going to get that. But let's say Djokovic and Nadal face each other in 10 years. They would still like go at each other with the same kind of drive, motivation, I think. So, I would probably say that there hasn't really been a match like this, and I don't think it's going to happen. Like, they're going to be very motivated to get this one. I don't know what that will bring us because, well, who knows what they can really give you at the moment. But yeah, they should have it really like a lot of fire in them.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I did also want to make the point that as much as we look at Thiem as kind of the diminished version of himself that he is, I think the same could go for Rafa. He barely played in 2023. He looked bad in the second half of 2022 and hasn't really been a strong version of himself since the French Open in 2022, maybe Wimbledon 2022. So, who knows what version of him shows up. I think it's possible that he, like you said, Damien, he is 37 now. So, but yeah, I do really like that since they were rivals, I think they will bring it. And so even if that is between diminished versions of themselves, the intensity should be there, even if the quality is not necessarily.
Yeah, I sort of missed like a good chunk of this discussion because my phone battery died. But do you guys have any thoughts in terms of like tactics you could be expecting from either player?
This is just a hunch, but I think Nadal is going to try to target the backhand. Not sure where I get that idea, but
left-hander against a one-handed backhand? No, there's no way he's going to go there. No way.
Really going on a limb there, yeah.
Yeah. But it is interesting because Thiem has proven as capable of handling that tactic as anyone with a one-handed backhand, really. I mean, Federer is the main example, and I think, Federer is obviously a much better player than Thiem, but I think Thiem has maybe been even more successful in that ad-court exchange than Federer. At least Federer was before 2017.
Before 2017, yeah.
Yeah.
There are a few one-handers that kind of handle it, and that's like Thiem Wawrinka, which is not surprising, given that they have a lot of similarities also in terms of their like play style and technique. So yeah, absolutely. It's not as big a problem for Thiem as it is for other one-handed players. And right now he kind of has to play like different tennis, not as reliant on the ball bashing as before. But as you said earlier, Owen, I mean, the backhand down the line is still there. So if it is firing, it's going to be a major asset anyway.
Yeah, and I also think that maybe Nadal, if he's aware, which he definitely should be, that the Thiem forehand is not what it once was, maybe go to that side a little more. Like you don't necessarily want to play that backhand into rhythm. If that backhand is now Thiem's best shot, give that forehand a chance to completely fall apart.
Yeah. I mean, he's not going to be expecting that same sort of level of danger. I think, people just very often to me forget how Thiem played in his prime. Like he just literally smacked every ball, and right now that's impossible. And we'll see. Maybe as we said, maybe with that fire, maybe with that motivation, he actually finds it. But he definitely plays a very different style now. Whether it was by design, I mean, most likely not. But he had to sort of change some aspects of his game.
Yeah, and it is in the caption here, nostalgia, and what you just mentioned, Damien, that Thiem used to bash every ball. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about their matchups of Vols? Like, for those who don't know, how good was this matchup at its best?
Well, in 2020, like their ATP Finals match was really, really high quality. Like, like 7-6, 7-6. I remember some of the points that they were playing in that match was just like ridiculous because like, I mean, Nadal was playing very well in 2020 at the ATP Finals, and he was like sort of always putting his best like serve plus one performances and like really like targeting Thiem's backhand in a big way. But Thiem like just always had the answer, even like deep in his backhand corner. He would just dig out these like incredible gets and then like just somehow track the next ball down on his forehand, and they would have these like extremely high intensity like rallies where it was just like and it almost seemed like in the biggest pressure moments, like Thiem had the confidence to just go bigger and bigger and bigger on his forehand, and he just never missed in 2020. It was pretty wild how he kept doing it over and over again, and how replicable it was. And like, I don't know, like Nadal just found himself on the back foot so often, and like back then I do kind of wonder, the biggest question mark is just going to be like, how well does Nadal defend now? Because like, I mean, if he's anywhere near where he was at in 2022, he can still win a lot of matches, like, with his forehand and with just like with his racket talent is still so good. He's still got like so many other tools, but I just sort of wonder, like, how good is his movement going to be like right off the gate? Like, I believe he only started training like a month ago, like in full flow. So like, besides,
5 months of
practice
rehabilitation
matches.
after the surgery. So more or less 2 months ago.
Yeah. So but at the same time, I feel like Thiem is also another matchup where he's gonna be able to find some rhythm, right? Because like Thiem is at least gonna be wanting to stand back really far back on the return, and Nadal's gonna have to hit like a lot of shots that way too, and so like it's not somebody like a Karatsev or a Safiolin where he's just gonna basically be on the back foot more often, you would think, and like sort of like the more erratic, like aggressive baseliner. Like this is still more two like clay court centric players at the end of the day who have just like adapted their game really well to hard courts.
Yeah, like if Rafa wins this match, I think, and Karatsev is in the second round, I don't think it's gonna go well for him. But yeah, this is much more manageable. Like even if he loses this, he's gonna get a lot of good rhythm out of this. I agree with that. Yeah, when it comes to the rivalry, interestingly, it's the hardcourt matches that are the most memorable. even though
Yeah.
there was a large part of the let's say 2018, 2019 season when they were clearly the best two players on clay. But still, most of them, like even when Thiem was winning, most of them were straight sets, and there wasn't anything that, amazing in their 12. I think the Buenos Aires one, the first one was a real classic.
Yeah.
The second one was the first Thiem win, was a real classic. Definitely remember watching that as I wanted to say as a kid. I mean, I was 17, but still, it feels so long ago by now. It just feels like a very different time when I was still watching that, living with my parents, etc. But also, I think that one French Open final, it could have been a real top 10 list of the decade or whatever. But after the first two sets, Thiem just completely lost all that intensity. And I guess it's of course credit to Rafa, because he managed to withstand the attacks for two sets, still claim one of them, and Thiem just didn't have it. Left in the tank. But I think that one is one of my missed opportunities in terms of the potential of us getting an absolute classic match that we sort of got two sets off, and then it absolutely died. Of course, the other French Open final that they played was much, much easier than that.
Yeah. And just to respond quickly to John's note there about the 2018 US Open quarterfinal, to me, that's by far their best match. It was a classic, absolute classic. Thiem comes out blasting out of the gates, bagels Nadal in the first set, which is kind of unthinkable at the time, right? Like, Nadal was having a very good 2018. Won Roland Garros, was pretty close to winning Wimbledon, had that thriller with Djokovic, of course. And so when Thiem bagels him, it was pretty shocking to me. But then Nadal slowly works his way into the match, and the last four sets were all very, very tight. Came down to a thrilling tiebreak in the fifth set. There was one rally late in the fifth where Thiem is just crushing overheads, and Nadal is getting them back. And finally, Nadal hits a rocket backhand cross court pass, and Thiem hits a winner anyway off a stretch volley. Just incredible stuff like that. And then finally, Nadal wins it off a missed Thiem overhead. And if I'm remembering right, I think that was the match after which Thiem said something like, this was his first real hard loss, and he was sort of learning what the next step for him was after that loss. Does that sound right?
It's possible.
Yeah, that was sort of the match that really made you think okay, now Thiem is ready to win big titles on hard courts, because up until that point, there was still quite a bit of a delta between his clay court hard court results against the best players until the 2018 US Open. And so in a way, that kind of, even though it was a really tough loss, it kind of showed that okay, he's starting to adapt and make the right adjustments to be able to win on faster surfaces too. And then of course then he starts playing well even in indoors and some of the faster hard courts. But yeah, up until then it was kind of a question mark.
Yeah, he was always 3 meters behind the baseline, always the same stroke regardless of the ball. But eventually, of course, in time, we now have Dominic Thiem with, basically all of his best career results on hard courts, which is wild. It is absolutely wild to think about it. I think the discrepancy is definitely not as huge as you would think, given that he has, the two biggest titles and the two ATP finals, runner-up appearances as well. But yeah, certainly he got closer. Some discussion as well in the chat about that, and Rafa's all court prowess and etc. But yeah, of course, these topics have been talked about many times. I still think that though, the top 10 record of Rafa of clay, it's really poor actually, for a player of his standards. But of course, he has 8 slumps outside of Roland Garros. So what are we even talking about, really? I remember there was a point though when people actually could put arguments into the fact that maybe Nadal is not an all-time great of clay. But of course that died with him winning all these US Opens later on, and of course also Australia 2022. I would agree with John as well here that Thiem definitely had a better peak to me than Nadal at some point, at least on hard courts in that stretch. Maybe not the full 3 years. I'm not sure about 2018, but 2019-20. Yeah, sure.
I think if Thiem won that ATP final, I mean, you could have easily put him as the player of the year in that short season that we got. But it's just, at some point, 2019, 2020, he was top two. Like, top two for sure in 2020, and number one is like,
Okay.
maybe possible.
Yeah, I remember thinking at that 2020 World Tour Finals that Thiem impressed me more than Medvedev, even though Thiem lost to Medvedev in the end because of the versions of Nadal and Djokovic that Thiem beat in that tournament.
By the way, sorry, but Ghosty has just donated $20. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, my
Very
friends.
nice. Happy New Year to you as well. And yeah, Medvedev had also beaten both Nadal and Djokovic in that tournament, but his match against Djokovic was Djokovic didn't really push that hard, and it was easy straight sets. But the Thiem Djokovic match, Thiem wins it in a third set tiebreak after being down 4-0. And I think for anyone who never watched peak Thiem, that's a good example of what he was like. Like, imagine anyone winning a tiebreak against Djokovic from 4-0 down. Doesn't happen, right? Thiem blasted the ball so hard that he could just run off like 5 or 6 points in a row by hitting 100-mile-an-hour winners, even against Djokovic. And that was what he did at that tournament, and it was really exciting.
John says that the Australian Open 2020 match, I guess, against Rafa is Thiem's best ever, in his opinion. Well, it must be up there in like the top 10, right? I mean, personally, I would probably go for that Djokovic ATP Finals. How early he took the ball as well there, and just started smacking it. Every single ball that came to him was just blasted, and then everything was working. And yeah, I agree that ATP Finals campaign, he was more impressive than Medvedev. The final, let's forget about it. But Djokovic and Nadal, the matches that he played against them, that was peak Thiem to me, I think.
Yeah, that 2018 match, now that I think about it, that's kind of like Wawrinka losing to Djokovic in 2013 AO.
Perfect comparison.
Yeah, after that, you kind of felt like, okay, this is like the turning point for both of them. But, well, I'm going to try not to be too sad about Thiem and his wrist and everything that happened after 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with John that match, the photo of which is up there right now, I think that was his best match. And I think that tournament, Thiem was one set away from achieving something really, really special because he beat, Vaughn, you can correct me on this, was it 4 top 10 players in that tournament?
Yeah, he beat Monfils in the 4th round, and then Nadal, then Zverev in the semis, and then
Zverev.
Right.
So it would have been 4 if he. Yeah.
And people forget, even before that, he had a tough draw. In the second round, he had a 5-setter with Alex Bolt. In the third round, pretty tough 4-setter with Taylor Fritz. And then after that, Monfils, Nadal, Zverev. And then he's 2 sets to 1 up on Djokovic. And those of us who watched that final remember, Thiem didn't even play at his best in that final. His backhand down the line was missing for a set and a half. And then the last set and a half, he wasn't. I think the forehand went away a little bit. So when
that was Djokovic, right? Like the 2 sets that Djokovic lost, that was more so Djokovic going to sleep, right?
That's fair. Weird because like Djokovic just, like he just totally ran out of energy, and I tanked the third.
Yeah,
I would argue the second set Thiem won on his own merit because he
okay.
But yeah, that is fair. And at the same time, I will say the game's Thiem got broken in the 4th and 5th set. I think a half donation, I would say.
Yeah, of course, he also had those like 2 break points. If he like converted on one of those at the start of the 4th and went up a break, maybe that would have like put him closer to the end. And then like Djokovic like serves and volleys on a couple of second serves, like just totally changes it up, and then like somehow manages to hold. And then it was but like I did feel like in the 5th, like Thiem was finally starting to run out of gas a little bit. And like he was so fit, like in his prime, like 2019, 2020, like it was just never a question mark with him. But
this is a slight sidebar, but I remember in that Australian Open final, after the 3rd set, I was thinking Thiem's gonna win. And then the first game of the 4th set, Djokovic comes out like blasting forehands down the line, and immediately I'm like, oh man, he just has too many backup plans. Like, of course, Djokovic is still going to win because he had like safety net after safety net when one part of his game was failing.
Yeah, he literally kind of half tanked that 3rd set and returned with more energy. But yeah, like when I'm thinking of Thiem right now, and after all the injuries, it's just so good that he got that US Open in the bag, because it would be It would be a nightmare if he didn't have it. He really, for a while, just deserved it, but was kept running into Nadal, Djokovic, and still was beating these guys a lot. Like, one of his best merits actually is his record against the big three, I think, which, against all three players, he has a decent one at least. Of course, you're not going to be beating them, I don't know, 10-1 or something like that, but he has a very good record against all of them. He was actually scary at his peak for all of them. But of course, some bigger matches he actually lost to them as well, with the exception, I guess, being the final at Indian Wells.
Yeah, he some of his matches against Federer are pretty underrated, I think. Like, there was that Indian Wells one, and the match they played at the 2019 ATP Finals, I think. Thiem beats him 7-5, 7-5 in a really, really tight match. Like, Thiem had to win basically all of the 30 all points to pull that out. And it was after matches like that got people thinking like Thiem could really potentially beat these guys at the top.
How about Madrid as well? Federer,
Yeah, he
Thiem.
saved a couple of match points in that one.
Yeah. And Federer would have played Djokovic, I think, in the next round if he won. So that was a good story as well.
I'm a little mad about that because it's 4-4 on clay with Federer Djokovic, so that would have been fun. But yeah, I mean,
and Madrid as well, that could give us a close match. Like, if they played in 2019 in Rome, for example, I wouldn't like Federer's chances, but in Madrid, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
He almost beat Thiem. He almost straight set it.
I guess they were like so close to beating in Madrid, but it just never happened because 2009 as well. Like, Djokovic had those 3 match points against Nadal in the semis.
So they both wasted match points in order not to face each other in Madrid. Yeah, the Thiem win Madrid. No, he only won Indian Wells when it comes to ATP thousands.
Yeah, he did lose like quite a lot of big finals, I guess. Thiem.
Yep.
Yeah, he lost like 7, I think. He won, and then he won the 2.
He was pushing the big 3, but when he played them in finals outside of Indian Wells, he was losing. Yeah.
Yeah, and also Thiem just was never really that good in the 1000 level events for the most part. Medvedev has more Masters 1000s than him on clay right now, which is pretty surreal to say. But Thiem kind of always excels in the majors relative to the best of 3 tournaments, aside from the ATP finals, I thought.
Wawrinka, again, it's the same comparison. Like, if you give him 2 hours to tune in his ground strokes, back when he was still a ball basher, he's eventually very likely to start beating you. And it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. In best of 5, his chances would actually improve against, I don't know. Well, maybe not Nadal on clay, because that's still impossible, but against Djokovic, for example.
Yeah, the Wawrinka thing was really hilarious because he would like go life and death for 5 hours with Djokovic at the Australian Open, and then they play in best of 3, and it's like 6-2, 6-2 for Djokovic, and it's like, dude, why do you show up here and not there? But it worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah, he only played. He only had 2 other ATP 1000 finals, by the way, both in Madrid. So, definitely a bit of an underachiever in terms of that level, but 4 finals at the Grand Slam level. So even that shows you that he had more there. It's been a theme today. Challenger TV is down as well. Almost everything is down on the ATP website, and the graphics design is just maybe they're changing it now. Maybe they're actually in the process of getting back to the previous structure.
I hope so. I actually really like the previous website. Like, it was easy to get a lot of information.
Yes,
like, it was
really packed with like needed the info that I need in the first literally frame. Like, if you enter the profile of a player, I had everything I need right away. And now it takes 10 clicks, or maybe it doesn't even take clicks at all. Maybe it's just not on the website anymore. Like, I have no clue where career high ranking is. Vange texted this to me today, and I still have no clue. Or like the ranking history, the history of a player's ranking, for example. It was so good when it was just like literally a list, and I could check, for example, when a player was last outside the top 100 in a second. Now it takes a lot of like reading the graph, and no, it's absolutely awful. And the fact that we don't have career high ranking even on the website. What?
Yeah, it makes no sense. Thank God Tennis Abstract at least exists for like some of those other stats, but it's
we would actually be dead without Jeff Sackmann. I think I've said it many times on these streams. I don't know if he has watched any, but I think on these streams he's been mentioned by me a billion times. But literally, without his one-man project, a lot of tennis, I don't know, broadcasting, analyzing, tweeting would be much tougher.
I have to get going in a couple of minutes, but do you guys have any other thoughts on this matchup, or any other questions?
No, I'm just laughing at it's even worse than the Talking Tennis website. Any other thoughts? There was a question in the chat, actually, well, sort of related to this. Is it impossible for a ball basher to win slams anymore? Do we have any ball bashers right now, like who are actually good enough to threaten for slams?
So this is gonna. I feel like everyone is gonna hate this, but like obviously he has like a billion dimensions, but Alcaraz does have a ball bashing dimension.
Rune as well. Like they
can
play like this, but it's not their main thing, right?
Yeah. So maybe
Sinner actually. Oh, Sinner.
Yeah. All three of them really.
Yeah, all three of them can ball bash. Sinner is actually the closest in terms of like his natural game plan to this. So maybe if he does it in 2024, as some people have predicted, including the guy drinking a beer right now on the stream.
What have I predicted, Damien? Sorry,
that Sinner will win a slam this year.
Did I predict that?
You said that the US Open, yeah, and I said Rune.
Oh
You don't remember that?
And I think as well, like, and he is of course another many dimensions, but I think what Djokovic did at the Australian Open in 2023 was not dissimilar to ball bashing. If you watch some of the forehands he hit, so I would say that a ball basher can win a major, but you need other dimensions to your game on top of that. So maybe you can't do it if you're solely a ball basher.
Yeah, but if Stan Wawrinka was in his peak at the moment, would he be winning slams?
Good question. I wonder if Djokovic just serves him off the court now with his current version.
Yeah, I wonder if before Djokovic just sort of played Stan into form on some of those matches, and maybe like now he might just take the racket out of his hand a little bit more and kind of actually like play with a little more variety, like Federer used to do against Wawrinka, and was a lot more successful, or just serve it infinitely better than that. But like. Yeah, I mean, I still think like it is possible, because like Sinner, Alcaraz, Rune, like they're all pretty complete, but it would just, you just need like a level of precision. You need you need to be able to like just play every single different style possible, like to win a slam. Because like how many guys actually win a slam? Like it's kind of like I've heard this take that's like once Djokovic leaves, like slams are just going to be open and like everyone will just have a chance, and like the world number 12 is like going to win a slam. And I'm just like not really buying this, because it's like you just look at all throughout history, it's like usually the top 5 players. Like
who was the last non-top 10 player to win a slam
on ATP?
Yeah.
Well, I guess Federer in 2017, but that's really bad.
Yeah, he doesn't count.
Which year was that? Sorry. 2018.
17 Australia. Yeah, but that doesn't count. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
Even when Stan was winning, he was as high as 3 in the world.
Where was Cilic ranked in 2014? US Open.
Cilic was out of the top 10, but
I think Delpo would have been in the top 10 already by the time he won the US Open.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably Cilic. But
this is a really sort of nasty way. It's a nasty way of looking at it. But is Cilic nothing wrong with him? He's a worthy Grand Slam winner, but is he the weakest Grand Slam winner in the last 20 years, 15 years?
Just because there's barely been any Grand Slam winners. Like if you only have 10 Grand Slam winners, then it's not really that much of a shame, right? That he's the worst.
Oh, yeah.
He might be the worst, but like if we get a regular era, and I know you guys have just said that, well, even in the past, it wasn't like everyone was winning slams. But still, in the 90s, you probably had like, 10, 15 more Grand Slam winners than in the 2010s. So if we put him in a group like this, he's not going to be the worst. If we put him in the 2010s group, yeah, sure.
And John, let's not forget, Marin Cilic 2022 Roland Garros semifinalist before our very guys.
Yeah. Well, you can't teach. Was it? You can't teach that. Was it something I said?
Yeah. We were in the stadium and Cilic hits a winner, and John goes, "You can't teach that, Marin." And I thought that was so cool.
I'd had a couple of
against
drinks
Rublev.
by then, I think. I was kind of doing commentary, I think, at various points. This is before even Talking Tennis existed. But yeah, I just want to go back though quickly, but hopefully before Owen has to leave. I know Van has to leave as well, but I want to just flesh out a little bit on what I said in the chat earlier about that 2020 performance of Thiem against Nadal. 4 sets of I just thought, and that's the other reason why, you could look at the 2 sets he played against Nadal at the ATP finals that year and go, yeah, he was amazing then too, and he was, but this is 4 sets. And he was the better player in the first set. It was just Nadal sort of being Nadal and his experience put himself. He was the better player in the first set, and suddenly Nadal is serving for it. And you go, how did that happen, sort of thing. A little bit like when Nadal was serving for it against Medvedev, funny enough, the same year at the ATP finals. I remember watching that going, how is he serving for the match here? Because for me, Medvedev was the better player. And yeah, I just thought Thiem was sensational that day. Every time he went for it, it was the right moment, the right time, and the right shot.
Yeah, and I'm fully with you there. And John, I think Thiem maybe only played 2 bad games in that entire match. I think the first was to go down that break in that first set, and it was a terrible game. And then after that, he did not play another bad game until he served for the match. He gets broken, and then he comes back to win anyway. So I think that was a great example of the mental fortitude you need to have to win a match like that as well.
I mean, Nadal showed, and listen, normally when Nadal shows his teeth and shows his mental fortitude, it's because he wins the match. But actually, he showed his teeth and showed his mental fortitude in that match and still didn't win it. He kind of got Nadal'd in a way.
Yeah.
That in terms of mental sort of strength in that match.
When you said Nadal showed his teeth, I'm thinking of that clip where he does like this to Djokovic. I think it's Australia as well.
I don't know that
both literally and figuratively, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a moment, by the way, in that tiebreak as well, when Nadal challenges on a ball, and it had some in that exact moment, it felt a little bit like the challenge in 2017. But it was with the match point for Federer. But that was a ball that Nadal wasn't going to make and couldn't make. And so he challenges, of course. But and Nadal sort of shrugs like this and goes, well, I've got to try. I remember that shrug. And he does a kind of a similar shrug after challenging on the match point the Thiem had in that particular encounter, where he's got a smash. Okay, it's a difficult-ish smash because it's one of those bouncy ones at the back court. But he just sort of shrugs and goes, well, I think he was convinced at the moment, but probably in the seconds that followed, maybe there was some doubt started to go in his mind. But he was 100% right. It was super close, but it did land out. And hopefully the people in the chat know exactly what I'm talking about, because I've kind of just given some assumed knowledge there. Vanch, do you want to reply to anything I've just said?
No, I mean, I probably agree about the 2020 AO match. Like, I mean, I know like Nadal doesn't have the best record in tie breaks, like really the last 3 years. Like against the very best players, actually.
I mean, against Thiem, especially that year, even. I mean, he had like 5 tiebreaks, I think.
Yeah, so that was just the most surprising part of it, was just like how time and time again in the tiebreaks, like Thiem was actually like, to win 5 in a row like that year was just so impressive. Especially like, yeah, just to go up 2 sets to love, and then like the whole performance in general was just like, I remember thinking going into it, like Thiem had a really, really good chance, but to actually do it and not let it go to a 5th set just impressed so much. And it's just like, it just takes you back to like what could have been, but like instead now I just wonder if this is like, if this might be the moment. Like, we've been waiting to see like Thiem kind of, because we've seen like flashes of his very best like in the last year and a half, some of the matches against Tsitsipas, like Madrid, Wimbledon, where he just hasn't quite gotten over the hump. And then after Madrid or Wimbledon, I was thinking like, okay, maybe if he can just have like that sort of one, if he can just finally get over the hump and win one of these type of matches, then maybe we could start to see something of the old. And then he sort of had that one really good week in what was it, like was it Kitzbühel where he made the final? Yeah, and he played that like amazing match against Jera in the semis, and then but like really since then, like we haven't really seen it. So I just wonder. I wonder if like this week itself could be like the turning point where there was like that snake, and like no one in the crowd was like even moving, and then like and then he just sort of has these like miracle moments where like he should pretty much not be alive right now, but like maybe this is like his chance, like when Nadal is just like coming back. It's like there's like just so many unknowns in this match.
Yeah, they had a practice set apparently the other day.
I think Nadal won it like 6-3, but it like doesn't mean anything.
All right, Owen, you've got to go, and I think Vanch too. But just, Owen, one word from you. I think you've probably already said it. Who's winning tomorrow?
I think Thiem's going to win. I don't trust Nadal's form after this long of a layoff.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Great to talk to you guys. Hope it's a good match.
Yeah, you too, Owen. Take care. And just before you both head off as well, I just want to sort of say something about Nadal has never been cool in a way. For a guy who's won 22 Grand Slams, you think that you've got to have a pretty good nerve, and he's got a very good nerve. But we kind of think of him more with fortitude. So he sort of fights through that more than like he'll choke, but then still win, as I think Mary Carrillo once said. And that's kind of what he's known for. Whereas I see somebody a bit like Novak and going back, somebody like Edberg, Sampras definitely as just being ice cool.
Yeah. I think it was Steve Flink who like told me that like Djokovic is like the most clutch competitor he's ever seen, but like point in, point out, like match in, match out, like Nadal is the best competitor, period.
He just has more intensity, right? I mean, Nadal's just intense. Yeah. I guess he's not ice cool, but he's intense, and like literally, every point he
kind of just treats everything like this, every single point individually.
Yeah, by itself, like it doesn't matter the next point. So it is a version of being ice cool, but it definitely exhibits in a different way.
I asked Tony Nadal, how does he do it? I remember, and I referenced a match that he'd had fairly recently in when we had the discussion, which is a Wimbledon match when I think he was up 2-0. I think it was Cerundolo, but it could have been Berankis, but I think it was Cerundolo. He was up 2-0. He then loses the third set. He's down a break, and he's 15-40 on serve. And I'm just thinking, this is turning into a nightmare. He must be thinking the same. He's going to go into a fifth set almost certainly. He's probably going to go a double breakdown here as well. Blah blah blah. How does he compose himself? Before I knew it, he'd won the match in 4 sets. And I asked Tony, I said, how does he do that? And Tony didn't really kind of give me an answer in a way I couldn't quite. I think it was, but he was sort of referenced the sort of 1 point at a time mentality. Win the next point and you're at 30-40. He didn't say that, but that was what I'm interpreting from his answer. Win the next point, it's 30-40, and suddenly you're maybe the favorite to hold serve on grass. And then suddenly you're only 1 break down, and then get the break back, and you're almost going to win the match from there. All right, well, 48 minutes on the clock, and my internet finally is working fine, but that's no big deal. Vanch, big thanks for joining us today, by the way.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm looking forward to the match, and yeah. Just as excited as everyone else is.
Yeah, fingers crossed it delivers. Fingers crossed it goes 3 sets. And, it could be... no, it could. I don't know what I'm talking about. I was going to say it could be an early contender for match of 24, but we've got no idea. And that's the thing. We've got no idea. No idea.
I'm expecting trash, but it's going to be fun.
It could be, anyway. It could be trash. It really could be trash. It could
I'm expecting a total mess.
But that's also fine. I like chaos. Yeah. It doesn't have to be clean. It can be full. It can be a US Open 2020 final kind of esque.
If I indeed I'm going to stay up for that, or maybe wake up for that. I actually don't know when I'm gonna go to sleep at all after New Year's. But if I indeed watch it and there's gonna be a stream, I think it's just gonna be fun to talk about this match anyway. Like regardless if it's good or not. So I don't really care if it's awful.
I mean, there's gonna be a story because if Rafa loses in a pretty bad way, if it's 6-4, 7-5, there'll be people going, well, there's a lot of good points for Rafa to look at, blah, blah, blah. But let's just say it's 6-2, 6-1, and Rafa just like throws in loads of unforced errors, blah, blah, blah. And it's just, and his movement is horrible. I even think watching him in practice, I don't think his serve has ever been great, of course, but I even thought in practice, what I've seen, everyone's very excited about him in practice, but it's more about the ground strokes, I think. the serves look slow. They look slow, even the first serves. But we'll see. There's going to be a story one way or another, I think. Probably going to be more than one story. And yeah, I think many people in the live chat. Good to see one or two people new in the live chat. Do hit the like button. And of course, subscribe. If you're new, we have reached 5,000. And now we're on the way to 6,000, 10,000. And it just keeps going. Do make sure you check out, of course, the Iga and Carlos show. Iga and Carlos Twitter account, of course, reaching the 500 followers mark. Talking, yeah, but listen,
right
you guys,
in time, not doctored at all, not doctored at all.
Yeah, I know. But then nor was the 5K that we got it doctored at all, with me talking to landladies. And I say landladies.
Me subbing from 2 other accounts. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. You subbed. When I say landladies, I don't mean I knocked on doors and talking to those. That was just one landlady who subbed for me. But yeah, do check out the Iga and Carlos show, and obviously follow them on the socials. Bernardo Lopez here asking, when does the match start? Well, it depends on where you are in the world. In Central European time, I think it's 9:30 a.m. At least that's when it's scheduled.
Not before, yeah, exactly.
Not before. Yeah. But isn't that also generally in Australia often quite secure, because there's often a gap between the sort of
actually, one thing we didn't mention is this match could be indoors, right? Because it's like supposed to be raining. Like
if it's raining again, then yeah. But there was a lot of leftovers from yesterday, so the schedule is pretty packed. Yeah. That's why I think it's possible that it will actually be delayed. But anyway, yeah, I mean 7 hours and 35 minutes from here is when it is scheduled. It's not going to start before then, but when it's
7 hours from now,
we'll see. 7 hours and 35 minutes.
My time zones are I'm having to try and work out about 5 or 6 time zones when I'm having various conversations, because of course we've got
now John is like sandwiched between me and Davian, because he's like 5 hours 5 hours ahead of me and 4 hours behind you. So it's
Then there's I actually said to Nick today, I said, Nick, just talk to Nick's in the UK, so even more reason for this, but just talk to me in GMT, Nick, because I have no idea what you're talking about right now. Because actually he was being kind and trying to help me by talking in Central European time. And Luke asking on Twitter, by the way, as well, a Raducanu prediction. Vanch, if you've got to go, just go by all means, by the way. And same with you, Dave.
Yeah, I have like a couple minutes.
All right. Yeah. Well, actually, let's try and just sort of address this Raducanu question. I know we're here to talk about Thiem and Nadal, but I think we've done that to the death now. Raducanu, she's against Roos. That's not a bad first round for her, I think. Damien?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I don't know. Rusa was in the final of Cluj, right, at the end of last year, and then she also did something. What was it? Right after that? Oh, she qualified, right? Did she qualify? No. What did she do? Because I was writing up a quick prediction for this match earlier today, and I remember that after Cluj, she also did something. Let me check. Was it like an ITF event? Was it
like win an ITF?
No, it was qualifying. No, it was qualifying here. Of course, maybe beating Danilina, who's like a full-on doubles specialist right now, isn't huge, but still, she's already beaten Niemeyer. She has a lot more rhythm. Yeah, I mean, we have no clue how Emma is gonna look. I know she's gonna be talking. She was talking about like rediscovering her love for tennis, similarly to Osaka, sort of. I think it's a pretty tough in-form opponent in the opening round. Of course, she still has the talent to rock the world and win it, whatever. It's probably not gonna be this event, but as like with many other players, the biggest boost to her comeback would be winning a match and just getting more playtime. To me, it sounds very, very close. And again, just like with Team Nadal, there are just so many things that we don't know yet.
Yeah, she talked as well. I mean, I think with Emma, there's a lot of intrigue for me. Sort of, there'll be 5 questions, and 4 of them won't tell you anything, but one that might tell you something. So there's been a few sound bites from her since she won that US Open. I remember one at Wimbledon she gave, where I kind of agreed with her, where she said, listen, the pressure's not really on me because I've won a slam and 99% of the tour haven't. And I quite like that response. And yet, yesterday, she spoke in a very different vein when she said, or it might be the day before, when she said that she'd felt that weight of expectation after the US Open win.
because what she said sounded nice that 2 years ago, but it wasn't actually true. Like, let's be
probably.
honest, like the people around her, the media and whatsoever, they still put the pressure on you. Like, you might think that way, and she's right, like, in a way, with what she said, right, that she has already won it, like she doesn't really have to do anything else. However, with the pressure around her and like how everyone is just at every single coaching change in her team, at every single injury, there's a number of stories, right? She still remains one of the most, like, I don't know, marketable and players who get the clicks. So it's rough to handle that, definitely. And it would be weird even if she actually had no issues with that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. In a way, it's kind of good for her to just have like a clean, fresh start and just kind of, pretend that the US Open didn't happen, even though obviously it did and it was a huge, massive moment. But now, no matter what, she'll always have that. So it's like she can just start from ground zero now and just kind of work her way back up to the elevator, because it's like she just straight went to the very top, but like didn't take any of the steps in order to get there, because like she was just so new, and it was just like something that we're just never going to see again, probably, like qualifier winning a major.
Right. The problem is I don't blame Emma on it, but I think there's a lot of things going on around her for this. But I don't know if I always believe everything that she says for one reason or another. And it's not entirely because of her. But like I say, with those two statements, I thought the one at Wimbledon was interesting and actually almost refreshing. And yet, as Damien highlighted, it probably wasn't the truth. And there's also this thing about the endorsements and stuff like that. When they were all happening in the immediate aftermath of that US Open win, I was reminded of how Alex Ferguson, and I'm talking 25 years ago, was extremely protective over Ryan Giggs, who was at the same age and was having the same things going on, because he was a good-looking teenager who was taking the world by storm by playing unbelievable football. And basically, Ferguson just said, look, you're not doing this. You're not talking to the media that often. You're not the person who's grabbing the microphone after the match, and you're certainly not flying off to different countries to sign various deals. And he lost control with Beckham, and that's one of the reasons he sold him. So I've gone from Giggs, I've gone to Beckham, and now I'm bringing it to the presence with Raducanu. When she was doing all those deals, I was thinking to myself, but I could be wrong, and only Emma and the people close to her will know. This is funny from Ghosty, by the way. Yeah, we were only a few hours into the new year, and there was already Alex Ferguson. Funny, there was a book out there about.
I read a great book recently. Just wanted to say that. What was it called?
Defeats.
Even the losses? No, even the defeats. Yeah, even the defeats. Yeah.
58 minutes in.
Yeah, there you go. Plug for the book. Tick. Yeah, and I just thought that Emma. I don't know. I just thought about this. That I don't think she doesn't need to do the British Airways and the water and the car. I don't know which car it was that she had to deal with. And this is just off the top of my head. She'll probably have dozens more. Never mind. You need a few. You need your basics, your clothing and all that. Fine, and maybe a watch or two or whatever. That's enough to get back to playing tennis. Yeah. There we go. I've had my little, but then that's maybe just me. Maybe I'm old school, and maybe I'm not with the kids and with the times. I don't know. Okay. Emma Raducanu, tick. Alex Ferguson, book reference, tick. Won't be the first time this year. I'm sure I'll be referencing my book. Vanch, if you had a book, I would plug it, and same with you, Damien, but you don't. But you do have a Twitter account with 500 followers for the Eagle and Color Show. But I know, by the way, how many followers do you have on Twitter, Damien? 6,000? 7,000?
7,600, something like that. 7,600.
Yeah,
I don't know.
7. So between you, you're close to 20,000 followers on Twitter, which isn't too bad for two individuals. Now, of course, most of those followers will be the same, but anyway, do check out the guys on Twitter. And there's a reason why they have so many followers. Ghosty agrees with me, so that's great as well. We've already agreed after an hour of our shows in 2024. Once again, I did try this 5 minutes ago, but we'll do it again. Vanch, big thanks for joining.
Yep, thanks a lot.
And Damien too, as well. It's a pleasure. Damien will be hopefully bringing us the Rafa Nadal Dominic team match. So make sure you hit like, make sure you subscribe, click the notification bell, and join Damien in 7 hours for that match.
pray for me not to fall asleep before it. And also thank you, AR, for the praise in the chat. We definitely appreciate it, and we'll keep trying to bring that content. Probably the next episode after the United Cup, or after Poland falls out of the United Cup. We'll see.
I don't know what this ghosty comment is. On that bombshell, we will now sail off into the distance and see you all in a few hours. Cheers, Vance. Cheers, Damon. Bye-bye.
Yep.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.